It's time for Comeback Sports with Brandon, the Coach Perry, and Pat, the Shot Caller Flaherty. Here we go.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Comeback Sports, a YouTube series show where we go over 10 sports topics of what's happening in the world of sports. And folks, if you want to help us out, make sure when you go to our YouTube page, subscribe to this channel. These are where all the content from Comeback Sports is going to be located. We split the show up into different segments. The live shows are always through this subscription, so make sure you check us out and subscribe on YouTube. I am joined by my partner, Brandon Perry. As always, Brandon, what's happening, buddy?
Hey, Pat, how's it going? I honestly think this is probably going to be the best show we have lined up this week, especially for the topics. So definitely subscribe, give us a like, and let's get settled in for a great show.
Absolutely, man. A lot going on right now in sports. And also, folks, you can see at the bottom of the screen, there are our Twitter handles as well. So you can jump on Twitter, check us out there. We usually tweet out the link to the show as well. So if you kind of forget where the link is to the YouTube show, follow us on Twitter. We'll always be posting that out before our show starts at 8 p.m. every Wednesday, which is what we have right now. We're going to start things off with sort of a somber sports topic, but I think it also is a great time to reflect on this specific athlete, gentleman, ambassador of the game of baseball. We lost Hank Aaron recently, and a lot of people across the sports world, because he's an older guy, it was tough to hear, but also we can reflect on the life and the career and all the great things that Hank Aaron did for the game of baseball, for the United States, and across the world, because this guy is a legend and did a lot of great things for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head right there, Pat, with calling him a legend. And that's what I've been saying, like, rest in peace to an American legend, and especially an American legend in the game of baseball. And I think he actually played when baseball truly was the pastime of America and really was the sport that was highlighted in our nation. And he was truly a bright star, a shining star. Like you said, what a gentleman, what a player. Went through so much in his career, and I even got to educate myself a little bit more on what he went through, especially in his early years of racism and having to deal with racism on and off the field, and how he really just handled it like a gentleman. And I know there's a lot of talk about how Jackie Robinson handled racism and really helped break the barrier, but I think Hank Aaron doesn't get enough credit for that as well, and I really think he deserves a lot of it. And realistically, I think he is the home run king. He is the home run king. These guys that, ended up breaking his record obviously did it with steroids and in the era of steroids. So this guy really is the home run king in my eyes, one of the greatest players ever to live. And I know a lot of people are thinking the same thing this week, and it's really sad to see him go. Lived such a great life, though, and really it was one of those things where obviously legends never die, and we'll continue talking about him forever. And especially if you're a baseball fan, that's going to be a name that'll just be on your tongue for as long as we live. And I think one of the greatest things that I've seen, especially stats-wise, was if you took away every single one of his home runs, he would still have over 3,000 hits. And I mean, that's an all-time mark in baseball that most hitters will never achieve. And this guy still did it, even if you take away all of his home runs. So I think that just proves of how great of a player he was, and baseball's really going to miss him.
Yeah, I mean, his career was unbelievable. He played till he was 42. He's basically the Tom Brady of Major League Baseball. But some of those other guys played in the latter stages of their career as well, including Willie Mays. But, Hank Aaron, obviously, he was the home run king with the 755 home runs. He's the last guy. Everybody thinks now whoever, could get a chance to break that record after Bonds did it, there's always going to be suspicion of steroids. I just think there is for now until eternity, because, these things are getting so much more sophisticated with how players are getting away with it, how, the companies that are developing these performance-enhancing drugs are masking agents and things like that, where Hank Aaron, you knew that there was nothing there except just talent, work ethic, and just he was an unbelievable player. And I think he's sometimes, now that the home run chase is over and Bonds has gotten there, and even though people still believe Hank Aaron's the home run champ, he still kind of gets lost in history with the fact that, Babe Ruth is this mythical figure. That guy, you talk about top, 5 athletes ever. He seems to always kind of be in the discussion, and I think it's because of his legend. He's been gone for so long, but just he was larger than life. Then you have Willie Mays, who a lot of people think is probably the best all-around baseball player ever because of the way he could play the field, along with how great of a hitter he was. And now you have modern guys. People are talking about Mike Trout being in the top 5 all time. I loved watching Ken Griffey Jr. when he was around. But Hank Aaron was probably the most consistent. He won 3 Gold Gloves of his own, and he finished his career with an OPS of 928. And that includes his last 2 seasons where his OPS was below 700. You take those 2 seasons out, that OPS is going to shoot up even more. So the guy had an amazing career. But, you think of Hank Aaron, and I think you think of class. The guy, nobody ever said a bad word about him. I don't remember him ever being on a TV screen or a picture where he didn't have a smile across his face. And even when he broke the Babe Ruth home run record, he's rounding second base, and there's 2 fans that come out of the stands, and everybody in the stadium is freaking out because they weren't sure if they were, there's been attacks on sports arenas before where fans come out of the stands and attack somebody. Just look at tennis with what happened to, was it Monica Seles or somebody like that?
Yes.
So, people were freaking out, but those people just wanted to run with Hank Aaron because he was such a beloved player, and he took it in stride. He just kind of was shaking their hands. He had a smile on his face. It's just typical Hank Aaron, and it's terrible that he's gone. But I almost think sometimes when these kind of legends pass away, their legend grows. And I'm sure we'll have a great Hank Aaron documentary that'll be produced soon. And, it's stinks that he's gone, but I think we're going to appreciate him a little bit more now that he's gone.
Yeah, I think that moment that you're talking about where he breaks the record there and those guys running around, I mean, we see that moment a lot, especially in his career. It's highlighted, and I think that is really the moment that sticks out the most, especially for me. And I know I just was watching it the other day, and they highlighted how his parents were there, and his parents were there to greet him once he got to home base with the whole mob of crowd that was also there. But yeah, I mean, it's crazy that he does get lost in the mix with guys like Babe Ruth, because arguably he's better than Babe Ruth. I think just people just might not actually see that. I mean, if you're a true baseball fan and you even look at the stats, I'd rather have Hank Aaron on my team than Babe Ruth any day. But we're going to move on to another legend, and I guess we started the show off with 2 sad topics, but we're going to just, get right into it because this is even a bigger one. I know personally for me, the passing of Kobe Bryant, and we're just a year from that now, was big, and it was hard to take. And I know I'm still suffering as a fan, as a coach, as a human being. Kobe was big. I mean, it's Kobe. What can you say?
Right. I'm a Celtics fan. I never liked Kobe Bryant when he was a player. I never liked watching him. I thought he was, he took a ton of shots because people call him a little bit of a selfish player, but he's the top 10 player of all time. So, it's okay for him to take a lot of shots. But I think the thing that, you got to appreciate, first of all, he was a brilliant basketball player. No matter if you don't like his style or not, the way that he played was unbelievable. He mimicked everything after Michael Jordan, and he got pretty close to getting to Michael Jordan. He wasn't quite there, but unbelievable player. And then, I think when you look at the Lakers back then, a lot of people were either on Shaq's side or Kobe's side. I was a Shaq fan first. I kind of stuck with Shaq. And the Celtics, being a Celtics fan, the fact that he was a Laker kind of stung at me a little bit. But then when you see what he did as soon as he retired, he was such an intense player. And we kept hearing from people who really knew him that said once he stopped playing in the NBA and that intensity, he could kind of let his guard down a little bit. He started coaching his daughter, and it just seemed like that's when people started to really understand what kind of guy Kobe was. And I think it's the most unfortunate part that everybody talked about when this happened just over a year ago was that what was going to happen next with Kobe, with what he was going to do coaching, with what he was going to do. I mean, if he was around for what happened over the summer, he would have done some amazing things for social justice because of how smart he is and some of the endeavors that he was already engaged in. You know, I think what would have happened next for Kobe would have been maybe just as, if not more impressive as his playing career.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I want to go back to even that, like you said, that comment about this summer, and with everything that was going on with obviously the racial injustice stuff. I had tweeted out that, like, man, are we missing Kobe right now? Like, this is the time where we're really missing him because he really would have been at the forefront of leading that. And I would have loved to have heard what he had to say. And I think it would have been a great leader in that. But yeah, I mean, it's just really a sad situation. Obviously, a lot of people passed away in that helicopter crash, and they're still investigating the actual cause of it. Right. But I mean, Kobe was the biggest one, obviously, that most people knew and that affected the majority of the public. But I mean, what a player. I mean, in my opinion, he's number 2 all time. And that's, a great topic that I know we can get into later on in the show. But I'd have to go Jordan number 1 and Kobe number 2. And like you said, he mirrored his game after Jordan and came very close. Some people could obviously say that it would be 1 and 1A. And I wouldn't even argue with that because I think Kobe affected the game that much. You've seen it just on the individual aspects of dropping 81 points in a game. And then again, on his final game, dropping 61 when, coming back from an Achilles injury and people are saying he's done, he's too old. And he comes out and he's still the Mamba that everybody knows and drops 61 points to end his career. I mean, and I think he was obviously the first real true player, him and Kevin Garnett, that really broke in the high school players into the NBA. So they really changed the guard. I mean, I think they are the real kings of the NBA, especially when it comes to that. Like I said, I mean, he was 18 when he played his first NBA game and scored his first NBA points, which is pretty amazing. But then, I mean, you look at all the things he did with Shaq, but then look at the 2 championships that he won without Shaq, I think are more defining for his career, winning them with Pau Gasol. I mean, Pau Gasol, Shaq, and I'm not saying Pau Gasol is a bad player. He's actually great, but Shaq is obviously a top 50 player of all time, probably a top 20 player of all time.
Definitely.
So it's one of those things where, I mean, winning 2 championships post-Shaq really showed how great Kobe was. And I think he's going to be missed for all time. For all time, people are still going to be talking about him, and he's still affecting the culture today, especially with his shoe line and just the way the Mamba mentality lives on, and people want to talk about him. I know one of the young players on the Memphis Grizzlies, John Morant, said he's going to be wearing a different pair of Kobe's all season long to honor Kobe. So I just think it's something like that you're just always going to see. It seems like every day, even in the coaching world, I see one of his speeches because he was big in that post his playing career as being a motivational speaker to athletes and teams. One of the speeches that I would recommend people to go watch is the speech that he gave to the Alabama football team. Was really good. So yeah, I think you hit it right with he was really starting to define his career more and define himself more as a person post basketball, which I was really enjoying to see him blossoming more as a father. And I honestly think he was going to be an NBA coach within a few years down the line. I think he was working his way towards that and getting back on the sideline. So yeah, it's, sad to see Kobe go. And I still think even today, even a year later, we were talking earlier before we got on the show, how it's still a shock that he's gone, and it still affects us to this day. And I think this is going to be one that's going to hurt for a long time.
Yeah, and whenever you talk about a professional athlete who's, he was just a couple of years out from retiring, so he was still a young guy, early 40s, and you still think of those guys as invincible. They're tremendous athletes that take care of their body. Kobe was notorious for being in great shape every year. You see what kind of things they do on the court. You mentioned him coming back from the Achilles injury. They just seem superhuman. And then when something like that, an accident like that happens, you kind of are brought down to earth and say, these people are human beings too. And when, Kobe passed away in that accident, obviously his daughter Gigi was in the helicopter as well, and a few other friends and family, and the pilot of the helicopter died as well. And it's just like there's human beings behind when these things happen. You know, we talk about him as an athlete, but there's human beings whose lives were lost there as well. So it's just the whole thing is still shocking, like you said, just over a year ago. And it's just amazing. It seems like yesterday that it happened. It wasn't that long ago, it seems like, but over a year. It's just amazing that how much time has passed since it happened. But we're gonna go back to more upbeat sports topics now. Yeah, exactly. Because the first two were tough, even though they were very important. Two guys that we love a lot. The McGregor-Poirier fight. Last weekend was a highly billed fight. You know, a lot of stations had commercials and were billing it up. And obviously, Conor McGregor is always going to bring a lot of attention. Anytime he has a fight, he's great at promoting himself and fights in general. But Poirier knocked him out in the second round pretty good. I mean, just absolutely clobbered him late in that second round. And watching that fight, I thought McGregor looks like he was hurting in just the second round. What did you think of that fight, Brandon?
Yeah, I was shocked by it, to be honest. I was picking McGregor. I thought he'd come out and look a lot better. He looked rusty, and he just didn't look good at all. I know that leg kick that Poirier delivered early was a big blow. I think it was saying McGregor hurt him there. He was hurt at that point, and it was kind of downhill from there, and that happened early in the fight. So I was just shocked. But like you said, I think Poirier really dominated the fight. He was the number 2 ranked fighter in that division, and I think he proved it. I think he actually deserves a chance to go for the title at this point, in my opinion. So I'd like to see either Khabib come back and fight him, which I think would be a great fight with those two, or you got to at least have another fight where Poirier gets to go for the vacated title, because, I mean, he was number 2 and he just beat up McGregor, who was number 4. I think he really proved that he is a force in that division right now. But it really was a shock. I mean, I was really shocked. Like I said, I'm a McGregor fan. Love the way the guy promotes himself. I mean, to me, he's funny. I know a lot of people do not like that kind of brashness and you know, the way he carries himself sometimes. But I kind of just look at it as he's a professional athlete. He's really looking to promote his brand. I guarantee you the guy's a totally different person if you were to get him on the side and talk to him. But, I mean, he's just promoting his brand 99% of the time, and it's smart. I mean, if you look at it, look at all the money the guy's made. I mean, he's probably made the most all-time as an MMA fighter. I mean, I haven't checked on that stat, but I'm pretty confident he's probably made the most all-time. He's got to be up there. He's got to be up there. He's obviously parlayed that into a fight with Mayweather and made millions of dollars in a boxing match that he's not even really a boxer. So I think this guy has done a great job of promoting himself to make money as a professional athlete. And I really think it's one of these things where, hey, we were talking about it earlier in the show, and here's my idea of what's going on. And I've already heard rumors of it. He's already trying to, like, kind of edge his way into a trilogy fight with Poirier, okay? And I think he kind of just pulled the rope-a-dope there and came in, you know, out of shape, didn't really want to fight. Like, I'm going to make a ton of money, but what I'm really going to do is set up the third fight where I'm going to make even more money, okay? And then what they're talking about is, like, and I just said Poirier deserves a chance for the vacated title. So if Khabib doesn't want to come back and fight for that title, McGregor might have just put himself in line to fight for the vacated title after a loss. So you have to give props to the guy for positioning himself to probably get a chance to fight for the belt again and make a ton of money. And here's what I think. I think he comes back, trains a lot harder for that fight, obviously, and I think we're going to see a totally different fight in that trilogy fight. And I'm expecting to see the third fight happen.
Yeah, he's a marketing whiz, and it would make sense if he was trying to do that. The only thing I would question is, why'd you get knocked out in the second round, and why'd you fight so poorly in this fight to try to get a next fight? Wouldn't you want to go 5 rounds at least and try to take it the distance? You know, a knockout is obviously huge for ratings and things like that and getting people excited, but the fight was ended so early that I wonder if that might, get people to say, well, I don't want to watch this fight if he's just going to get knocked out early again, or pay for this fight, actually, if he's going to get knocked out like that again. But I think you could be right. He's a very good at marketing, very good at promoting himself. The thing that I look at, though, is he's lost 3 out of his last 6 fights. Now, one was against Poirier, one was against Khabib. So, you're fighting 2 of the top guys in your weight class. But I just worry, they're the same age, Poirier and McGregor, so I don't think he's getting too old, but is he starting to get worn down? I mean, I think that's a decent question to ask, but he's not old yet, so, it's the answer is probably no, but I think it's something that you have to think about, and you're probably right. I would imagine they'll have at least a second fight. If Poirier wins that one, are they going to have a third fight? Who knows? I'd like to see them keep fighting just because I think they're 2 of the best fighters in their weight class, but we'll see what happens there.
Well, this was their second fight, Pat. They actually fought 7 years ago. Yeah, where McGregor knocked him out, and now Poirier delivered the return knockout blow. So that's what I'm saying. He's kind of like edging his way into the trilogy fight. And here's my idea to counter what you said, which I think is a great point, because like you said, getting knocked out early might not benefit you for the fight game and pay-per-view game. However, though, if you're looking to get into that third fight and you kind of want to save your body for the third fight and save your best for that third fight, or even your next fight, getting dispatched in the second round is probably better than going through a mega war for 5 rounds and then being like, man, yeah, now I need to kind of rest for months here before I can even get back in the ring to make some more money. And so I really think that's what he did. And I also think the kick by Poirier changed a lot of things. And what is it, the whole fighter thing? Like, everybody's got a plan until they get hit, right? So it's like, I think his plan changed on that leg kick pretty fast. But I'm telling you, look for this trilogy fight to come up, and I'll be expecting to watch it, and I'll be expecting to talk about it on the show. But moving on to a great weekend of football that we had just watched, the NFC Championship highlights. What a game. I thought it was a good game. It was a great watch. Obviously in Lambeau there, Green Bay versus Tampa Bay, the Battle of the Bay, one cold, one hot. But yeah, no, what a great game, obviously, I thought. What'd you think about that game, Pat?
Yeah, unbelievable game. I'm going to be the first to admit I was wrong. I thought Green Bay would beat Tampa Bay by double digits, and I was totally wrong. A lot of the Bucs played really well. Brady was unbelievable in the first half. Then really struggled in the second half, but towards the end of the game, like he always does, he makes a couple of good plays to seal it for the Bucs. Rodgers was very good, but there were times when I thought Green Bay should have been more aggressive. Everybody's talking about not going for it on 4th down with 2 and change left in the game, and I thought they should have gone for it. I think it's crazy that they didn't, because you're still down by 5. You're still going to score a touchdown. So we could probably talk about that a little bit, but great game all around. I was surprised at how well some of the receivers played. I mean, Godwin still had a couple of drops, but still played well. He had some other plays where he was awesome. So he played really well. Mike Evans played well. Connor Brady had a couple of big catches. Gronk had a huge play in the second half. Not the same guy he was before, but had, as we saw in New England, a lot of people probably didn't see it as much because they don't pay attention as much to the full Patriots games when he was with the Pats. But Gronk's such a good blocker at tight end, and you saw him making an impact as a blocker in that game as well. So I just think that was a huge effort by the Bucs, and I was actually surprised at how poorly Green Bay's defense played. They have a good defense, pretty good secondary. Linebackers aren't otherworldly. I think the Bucs linebackers are much better, but I was just surprised. They seemed like they were on their heels, caught back on their heels early in that game. It seemed like the Bucs came out flying, and the Packers almost weren't ready for it.
No, I agree, and I'm going to have to eat my crow too, because I picked Green Bay to win as well. So, I mean, I'm going to take a little bit, but I will take a little bit of a toot of my horn, because the guy that changed the game was Leonard Fournette. And I've been talking about this guy for weeks now, especially on the show, how he can catch out of the backfield, and he's really defined himself as a receiving back this year with a good quarterback like Tom Brady. But he really changed the game. He had a great game. I think Brady played great early, and it was defining. It stole the momentum where the Packers really had to fight back the whole game, and that was big. especially that play right before the half. I have no clue what Green Bay was doing defensively, and I don't have a clue what King was doing as a defensive back, because you have to play deep. You have to be in prevent there. You cannot get beat deep ever in football, but especially at the end of the half right there with just seconds running off. And Brady was the veteran, saw it, threw it over the top to Scotty there, Scooter they call him. And boy, that kid can fly, and he was open. And I think that was the play that kind of broke the Packers back. I know they had played a better second half, and they came back, but it was fighting back the whole time. And they just couldn't come back. And then as far as the coach's call there, you have to go for it there on fourth down. You might not ever get that close again. Obviously, they didn't get that close again. Tom Brady didn't give them the ball back. I think it's a bad idea to give the greatest quarterback of all time the ball with 2 minutes and the lead, and you clearly seen that. I think Matt LaFleur is obviously regretting that now, but it's just something that I know people have talked about the percentages, whether it's 9.5% chance to win if you kick the field goal compared to a 10.5% chance if you go for it on fourth down. But those percentages do not account for Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams, and in a moment like that where I got to go with Aaron Rodgers and give him a chance to win the game at that point on fourth down against a Bucs secondary that was missing Jordan Whitehead, who got knocked out of the game, and Antoine Winfield did not play in the game. So it was a weakened Bucs secondary. I obviously think they got beat a few times where he really did take advantage of them. So I think you got to go with Aaron Rodgers at that point on fourth down and give him a chance to win it. They didn't. They gave the ball back to Tom Brady. Tom Brady does what he normally does and closes games out, going back to a 10th Super Bowl, and that's amazing in itself.
Yeah, and we're going to have, next week, I'm sure we're going to get a lot into the quarterback matchup. We'll actually get into it a little bit towards later on in the show. But, yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you go back to that fourth down call, I know the percentages are very close, but I think what happens is with a younger coach, especially who doesn't have a lot of experience in these types of games, you kind of lean on, okay, well, what are the percentages saying? That's almost like, I don't want to say a crush, because it is smart to look at analytics. It is smart to look at those types of numbers to kind of see what's your best shot. But when it's that close, and you, like you said, you have Aaron Rodgers, you got to go for it. Even if the Packers don't get the touchdown, right? Even if they throw an incomplete pass or they get stopped inside the 5-yard line or whatever it is, you're still having the Bucs backed up inside their own 20-yard line. And then you saw the Bucs, on a play where they went for it on fourth down to seal the game. They're not running that play if they're inside their own 20-yard line. But because they were more closer to midfield, they could run that fourth down play. So, when a team is backed up, their confidence in their play calling is not the same as if they were, at the 30 or the 40-yard line. So I just think it was just a terrible call by the coach. And, the Packers are going to be good again next year if Rodgers stays. We're going to get into that a little bit later as well. But, it's just unfortunate because I think this year was Rodgers' best year to get another Super Bowl win. Because, every quarterback talks about winning the Super Bowl at least once. Then when you get one, now it's even more elite territory when you get 2, 3, and it's just unfortunate that because I think Rodgers is a top 10 quarterback of all time, and it's just unfortunate he didn't get that second one. But we also had another game on Sunday, is the AFC Championship game, and talk about a great quarterback. Pat Mahomes and the Chiefs defeated the Bills 38-24, and typical Chiefs fashion, they get down by 9 points to start off the game and then come firing back with 3 straight touchdowns. Typical Chiefs.
Yeah, called it. This guy right here called that one, right? Said if Patrick Mahomes plays, the Chiefs are going to win. And, I was keeping an eye on his concussion protocol all week. Once they said he was cleared to play, I said, oh, this game's over. I mean, Kansas City is just too powerful right now. They have arguably the best offense in the league, and I think it is the best offense in the league. I think the other team that you could argue has the best offense is the team they're going to be facing with all the other weapons in Tampa Bay. But I think I'd have to go with the weapons that Patrick Mahomes has right now. I mean, just options after options with Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, McCole Hardman. You got, like I said, Le'Veon Bell on the bench right now. I don't even think you got a carry in that game. The guy is an all-star running back, and they just haven't even had to use him. So They've got so many stars on that Kansas City team. I think Andy Reid has them really hitting on all cylinders right now. And I think early in the game, obviously, Buffalo looked good, and they were really in control of the game. When McCole Hardman fumbled that punt return, I said, oh no, this could change the game. This could change the game. And credit to the Chiefs, though, and credit to the coaching staff and to the players. And even if you look back at it, to Mahomes on the sideline saying, hey, we've been here. Let's just play like we know we can play. We've been here before. We're ready for this moment. And they settled down. They settled McCole Hardman down. They got him some touches on the next couple of drives, got him into the end zone. I think that was big to get his confidence back because he's one of your biggest weapons. But, I mean, they looked really good right now. I don't think there was ever a point where Buffalo really threatened to win the game, even though they controlled the start of the game. I think shortly, like I said, maybe what was that, mid-second quarter, that's when Kansas City kind of put on all the jets and took control of this game. And I knew it was over at halftime, and then they just came out and kind of finished it in the second half. I think, honestly, one of the big stories is the way that the game ended and the poor sportsmanship, obviously, of the Bills and the quarterback throwing the ball. He's got to learn that, obviously, the Bills can be back and bounce back, and they can be in that situation again next year. So it's all experience. You've got to take that experience, whether it's good or bad, and kind of bounce back, especially as a professional athlete, and kind of move on. So I think it was kind of upsetting as a fan and as a coach to see the game kind of spiral out of control a little bit at the end. But I think most people knew it was going to get a little chippy right there because Kansas City was just dominating the game in the second half. The Bills knew their season was coming to an end, and they just didn't want to see that happen. One of the other storylines was obviously Stephon Diggs, and they pretty much kept him in check. And he stayed on the field and watched Kansas City celebrate. And I think that's more of a way that I think Josh Allen should handle losing the game is like, hey, let's see how they handle it. Let's use that as some ammo for next year. And I know that's what Stephon Diggs is going to do. And, I mean, he was arguably the best receiver this year statistically. And I'm expecting him to have another big year next year.
Yeah, I think Diggs had probably the biggest impact on his team when it comes to receivers as anybody else in the league. So I think you're absolutely right. Guys like that who stay for the other team's celebration, it does a couple of things. One, they say that the feeling they were feeling at that time watching the other team celebrate, they never want to feel that again. So that fuels the fire for players like that. Number two, they look at that and they say, I want that to be me next year. I want to come back here and I want to feel that next year. That type of championship winning atmosphere that Diggs was looking at when we saw the Chiefs celebrate. I think one thing with the Chiefs now that they've won a Super Bowl, and more with Andy Reid. Reid was always kind of like the guy who was a great coach, great play caller, could never really manage the clock well. And now Reid's at a point where they go for it on fourth down. They're more aggressive. I think now that they've won a Super Bowl, and specifically now that Andy Reid has won a Super Bowl, he's just throwing caution to the wind, and he'll go for it on fourth down. He'll take chances because he knows he's already got a Super Bowl in his back pocket. He's not going anywhere. He's got one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, the best quarterback in the NFL, in Pat Mahomes. He's got an unbelievable offense. So why would he not go for it? And I think that aggressiveness that he's allowed to display has really helped him this season.
Yeah, I agree. I think once you get that relief of, I think that was the big thing, right? Everybody was questioning, can Andy Reid get his team to the big game and win it? So once you do that the relief's off, the stress is off, you kind of go deep into your bag of tricks, and you might even create some new stuff as a coach to use because you've just gained a whole new confidence of your play calling ability, of your coaching. I think you're right with Andy Reid. I think we've seen that out of him, and I think you're seeing his team play at a high level. I think a lot of it has to go to Eric Bieniemy again. I know we've talked about Eric Bieniemy on the show in the past. He really has this team playing at a high level, and even with the whole coaching controversy that was following him over this past week, all he did was deflect it and wanted to talk about how this team's preparing to win the Super Bowl and how that's their goal. So I think this team is just really focused in with the players and the coaching staff. I think it's going to be a really good Super Bowl. I don't want to make a prediction yet because I know we're going to have a show in between to make a prediction, and I'll do a little bit more thinking whether I'm going to predict as a coach, an analyst, or predict as a fan with my heart with Tom Brady. But I'm looking forward to the game. And let's talk about a little bit of the game coming up, because we're going to talk about the GOAT versus the Golden Boy. And I love that topic from our producer, Ben. He's always coming up with these great topic names. But it honestly could be arguably be called the GOAT versus the baby GOAT, because I think Mahomes is just, positioning himself to be in that situation and be in that talk for the future.
No question. I think you've got the greatest quarterback of all time going up against the current best quarterback in the NFL. So you've got a guy who has done everything on the football field, but somehow this year he's kind of stepped it up and done one more thing, one more notch on Brady's belt, especially if he wins this one with a completely different team. And then you've got Pat Mahomes, who just won the Super Bowl and is now, we talked about before how Rodgers still hasn't gotten that second Super Bowl. If Mahomes wins this one, now you're starting to say, I think people already thought he was going to be in the top 10 of quarterbacks all time. Now, if he wins two, he's definitely in there, because he's going to be good for years to come, barring any kind of injury. And then after that, it's like, now is he going to get to the top 5, because I think you can start to even discuss that, even though it's still very early in his career. But I'm excited to see these two guys. Mahomes is so talented throwing the football. Everybody knows that. He can throw sidearm. He can throw from all different angles. He's got a rocket for an arm. His accuracy is unbelievable. But then you've got Brady, who still looks good. At 43, he can still sling it. Just not anywhere near a Mahomes or a Josh Allen. I still think Rodgers' arm is a little bit stronger than Brady's at this point. But can still sling it, and he's got great receivers, just like Mahomes does. So I think it's going to be a duel. Both defenses have been playing pretty well. I actually think Tampa Bay's defense might be a little bit better than Kansas City's. Having White back in the middle of that defense, he's been unbelievable for Tampa Bay. And then their defensive line's been really good. We forget the talented players on that defensive line with Ndamukong Suh, Jason Pierre-Paul, plenty of guys there to talk about as well. So, it's going to be a fun matchup, but just going into it, the two quarterbacks are going to be the headline. It's going to be, whenever you have two otherworldly quarterbacks like we're going to see on Super Bowl Sunday, it's always a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think Brady has really defined himself even more as the greatest quarterback of all time, getting himself to a 10th Super Bowl with a new team when people were doubting him. I think the Patriots look like idiots at this point. And they look cheap. They look cheap right now. You're going to offer this guy a little bit more money. You couldn't put any weapons around him. And now look at you. You're sitting at home. This guy's taking himself to another Super Bowl at 43 years old. So, that's just me venting a little bit as a Patriots fan. But you look cheap, man. You look cheap. You look cheap. You look stupid. This guy has proven you wrong yet again. He's proven many of us wrong. And like I said, even at one point last year, I was saying he lost a little zip on the ball, but he's proven me wrong to that point. And I think the weapons do help, though. Having the weapons, like we've talked about many a times, if he had those weapons in New England, I think we'd be in the Super Bowl right now if he had stayed. And he would have stayed if we had given him the money that he wanted and the weapons around him. But yeah, I think this is, like I said, he's defined himself more as the greatest quarterback of all time. Patrick Mahomes is definitely putting himself in the conversation of top 10 quarterbacks. And I think that's, on the rise. His stock is completely on the rise. If he can completely keep on this ascending roll that he's on, I think you could easily see him in the top 5, especially if he keeps winning titles. And I think Andy Reid's going to put him in position to win titles, I think, for at least the next couple of years and for the foreseeable future. I think you have two different quarterbacks here. You have obviously a one quarterback who's going to rely more on his age, his experience, being able to break down defenses and read coverages and then utilize his weapons, go to the check down. And then you have Patrick Mahomes, who's just really a generational quarterback, can get outside, he can move the pocket, he can run if he needs to, get you that first down. He can throw sidearm like it's his second job. This guy is unbelievable. I think he's a great player. We've talked about him a lot on the show. We'll talk about him many, many more times. But I'm looking forward to this Super Bowl, not only just because of those two guys, but like you said, I think the Bucs defense is playing amazing right now. White is playing unbelievable right now. He played great in that championship game, that NFC Championship game. So I think we truly are getting the two best teams right now. And I think it's crazy because Tampa Bay was a 5th seed. and they played through that wild card. But we've talked about how they've really come on in the second half of the season. And I think this is one of the few times that you can say in the Super Bowl we're truly getting the two best teams right now playing at their best. And I'm really looking forward to it. And obviously the two quarterbacks are going to be the headlining story.
Right. I think, I don't think it's a huge shock that the Chiefs are in the Super Bowl with what Mahomes has been able to do. And then with the Bucs, it was, this is already a shortened off season. You've got a couple new guys. Oh, by the way, your quarterback's brand new, and he's been in another system that's basically been the same for the past 2 decades. Yet Brady comes in. They cater things to Brady a little bit. It took a little while to really get there. But you saw during the end of the year, they won 4 straight. Not great competition, but they won 4 straight and then just kept it rolling during the playoffs. Got a little bit of lucky with the seeding, but I think they would have beat anybody they played in the NFC this year. They beat the best team in the NFC, which I thought was the Green Bay Packers. So unbelievable that those two quarterbacks are going to be matching up to the Super Bowl. It's going to be a lot of fun talking about and then watching it on Super Bowl Sunday. Now, we're talking about the 2 teams that are still alive and the 2 quarterbacks that are still alive, but heading into this offseason for the NFL, there's going to be some quarterbacks on the move. Now, the free agent class isn't actually that great. I mean, you have Dak Prescott, who's the best quarterback. That's technically an unrestricted free agent. Jacoby Brissett, Mitch Trubisky, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Tyrod Taylor are actually the top quarterbacks that are going to be free agents. But now, over the last week or two, we're now hearing that, or last couple of weeks, we know Deshaun Watson. I highly doubt he's going to stay in Houston. Things could change if they hire Eric Bieniemy. That might help, but I still think he's leaving. Then you have Matt Stafford. The Lions and Matt Stafford just talked about agreeing to part ways, so they're going to have to make a trade with Stafford and Aaron Rodgers. Some people think Aaron Rodgers is going to be on the move, which is unbelievable considering he just went back to the NFC Championship and basically he's probably going to win the MVP this year. So the fact that he's going to be on the move is going to be crazy too. So this is going to be a quarterback carousel this year in the NFL, Brandon.
Yeah, I think like you said, the ones that are already going to be free agents that we know about, but then all the unknowns that have recently popped up. Even Jared Goff is in that conversation. Obviously, Carson Wentz is in that conversation. I think you still got to talk about where's Cam Newton going to go. As Patriots fans, we want to see where he's going to play next. But I think the fact that you've got Matthew Stafford on the board now and possibly Aaron Rodgers and Deshaun Watson, this is going to be one of the most exciting free agencies in NFL history. With the amount of quarterbacks that are going to possibly shift teams, I think it could possibly break a record. I don't think you've ever seen anything like this. And I think you're seeing that just by, I think the money that's in professional sports now is playing into that. You play these quarterbacks so much money that if you don't get a return on them, you're obviously wanting to move on pretty quick. And I think you obviously seen that with a few teams this year, and I think you're seeing that especially with the Eagles. I would have never given Carson Wentz that much money, and I honestly said when he was coming out of the draft, this guy sucks and he's not that good. But hey, people see something different and they go with something different, and now they're having to look to see if anybody's going to be willing to trade for him. I don't think that's going to happen, so I think you're going to see the Eagles just cut him. But so he's going to be out there on the board. Some team will sign him because the quarterbacks in the NFL, they don't come a dime a dozen. So it's a pretty thin position. So I think he'll find himself back on a roster. But I think the headlining is going to be where does Rodgers go if he wants off the Packers? Where does he go? Who's willing to give up something to get him? Are the Patriots going to make a move on either Rodgers or Stafford? And in my opinion, as a fan, if you do not make a move on either Rodgers or Stafford, then it's completely a bust and a fail, and you make yourself look even more like a joke of an organization. I don't care how many Super Bowls you have. This is professional sports. It's what have you done for me lately, and you just went off of a 7-9 season with $1 million quarterback that looked like poo. So it's like, what are you going to do? What are you going to give us now? You need to go ahead and get a traditional franchise quarterback. And I think the guys that are out there, obviously, that we want to see are Stafford or Rodgers or Deshaun Watson. I think Deshaun Watson is definitely still on the move. The rumor has it that even if they hire Bieniemy, he wants out. He just wants out. I think he's done with the organization. He wants a fresh start. So honestly, if I'm an NFL coach, I'm telling the Texans, pound sand, pound pavement. I'm staying wherever I'm at right now. I don't want your head coaching job because you're not going to have a quarterback. Deshaun Watson's out the door, okay? That's going to be in rebuild mode. And obviously I know there's going to be a coach that's going to want to take that job. But I don't think it's going to be one of the top coaches that are out there or the ones that are left that are going to be looking to take a rebuild in the Texans organization after you've shipped away DeAndre Hopkins and now you're going to ship away Deshaun Watson. But yeah, I mean, the quarterback carousel is going to be interesting. I think people even talking about Ben Roethlisberger is going to be out there. And I think you're going to see that. Is his time in Pittsburgh done? I think he's still got a lot left in his tank. I think he proved that this year with the good weapons, obviously, like he had in Chase Claypool and Juju Smith-Schuster. So I think there's going to be a lot of quarterbacks moving around. And like I said, as a fan, I'm really curious, what are the Patriots going to do with their position?
Right. I mean, I think if we're talking specifically Matt Stafford, if the Patriots do have to give up that 15th overall pick, I think I'd probably still do it. But if they're looking for multiple first-round picks, I don't know. Because it's not just, you bring Stafford in. I like Stafford a lot. You got to give guys for him to throw to. They don't have anybody to throw to. I still think there's promise in the two young tight ends they drafted. They didn't really have a full season for a multitude of reasons, so I think there's still a chance they could be solid players. Who the heck knows with N'Keal Harry? Things just haven't gone well. Jacoby Myers is a third or fourth receiver, and then you don't even know if you're going to bring James White back, so who's probably your best pass catcher on the team. So if you're going to get Stafford, first-round pick, maybe. I would definitely give up a second. That's no question. A second and a third, I would do it in a heartbeat. But then you have to go. You have a lot of cap space. Go out and get guys for him to throw to, because you need that if you're going to bring that guy in. Because if you bring Stafford or Rodgers in, it's not going to be a long-term plan. They're not going to be around for 7-8 years. They're going to be here with the Patriots for a couple of years. You got to maximize that time, and you got to bring in guys that they can throw to. But as far as the quarterback carousel, the other thing, too, before we move on to the next topic is you already had Phillip Rivers retire. Drew Brees is probably going to retire. Then if Ben Roethlisberger retires, not only are we talking about all these quarterbacks on the move, we have 3 franchises that are playoff caliber franchises who have just lost Hall of Fame quarterbacks. So they're going to want a quick fix. So they might want to go after Stafford. And then you got San Francisco, who the other quarterback we could talk about a little bit too is Jimmy Garoppolo, who might be on the move. So, you have a lot of guys who could be switching places because guys are retiring or guys are unhappy or they've agreed to part ways, like in Detroit with Stafford. And there's a lot of different coaching changes. So the quarterback carousel, like we've been saying, is going to be unbelievable this upcoming season. So I think that's going to be definitely a crazy thing to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, the only quarterback on that list that's worth multiple first-round draft picks is Deshaun Watson. And I know people are probably shocked that Aaron Rodgers isn't, but just at his age, I think you're going to be, hedging a lot on a quarterback that's probably going to be with you for 2 or 3 years, maybe 4 years max. I think that's the same with Stafford, like you said. Yep. So I'd be willing to go ahead and move on from my first-round pick, the 15th overall. But I wouldn't move multiple first-round picks for Stafford or Rodgers. I would, however, for Deshaun Watson. But I would still like to see them come up with some sort of package to get one of those quarterbacks that's on the market and to go out in free agency and to acquire some weapons to put around this offense, because obviously we need better players on this Patriots team. They have to going forward if they want to get back into the playoffs. And I hopefully that's a move that they're going to make. I know we will definitely be talking about it going forward on this show. But going forward to the NBA, and it's a hot topic right now, you got a lot of teams right now with their big threes coming back. The Celtics' big three getting to play with each other for the first time tonight. Tatum, Brown, and Kemba Walker. And obviously you got the Nets' big three really making a splash together when they got on the court for the first time.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got the Nets, so far so good with them. They don't know how to play. They don't play good defense, which I think we kind of all expected. They're probably going to try to acquire a big man who can play defense for them. I think JaVale McGee was one of the guys that they were possibly looking at as a rim protector to get in there, to be a tandem with DeAndre Jordan, who looks like he's starting to show how long he's been in the NBA for a little bit, but it's, their big three is unbelievable. They have the best big three in the NBA, I think, without question. You've got Milwaukee, who actually has a pretty solid big three themselves. You got Giannis, Chris Middleton, and Drew Holiday. Not quite the level of Brooklyn, but you probably have one of the best players in the NBA, and then two good guys that really complement him well with the way they can shoot and the way they can play off the ball and the way that they can fill roles on defense as well. And you have the Celtics big three, a smaller big three because you've got Kemba in there, and you've got Tatum and Brown, but definitely a big three. They're playing together for the first time this season tonight against the Spurs, so it'll be interesting to see how well they play together after being away from playing all together since the bubble. So that'll be fun to watch for the Celtics. But then there's also, some teams are going to try to find a big three. And I think one of the biggest players that could be the next one on the move could be Bradley Beal. Bradley Beal is an unbelievable player. I think he doesn't get the attention that a lot of the players get because he plays for the Wizards, because he's not brash, he's not loud. He played against the Celtics the last game that Jason Tatum played before coming back from COVID, and he was unbelievable. I think he scored close to 40 points in that game. Couldn't miss. Just the way that he takes over a game. He's also an unbelievable shooter, so that if you pair him with, a few other players who aren't necessarily perimeter shooters, specifically, he can still work well for that team. So you might see somebody like the Philadelphia 76ers try to go get Bradley Beal because he would work well with them, or maybe some other teams that are looking to add another piece to make a championship run. It's going to be very interesting to see if anybody goes after him.
Yeah, I think he's a great player. I mean, I would want him on my team, definitely. I mean, he can score it and light it up in just a second. Just get him the ball. And I think it's a bigger story is it seems like nobody wants to play with Russell Westbrook. Like, once you get on that team and you start playing with Westbrook, it's like, yeah, I want out of here. This guy is, I don't know. He's just bad for locker rooms. I know he's a ball hog. Obviously a great player himself and can score it and can light it up. But he's one of those guys, has to have the ball in his hands, has to always be making the play. He's the one that runs it. I'm sure he tries to run the locker room. So I think that's where you've seen over this past couple weeks where the rumor has it that Bradley Beal might want out and might want on the move. And I think, like you said, I think he's been underappreciated in the NBA and over the years. This is a great player, an all-star caliber player that, potentially if you put him on a different roster with a couple of different players, he could really shine and show you the type of player that he is. But I think the NBA is just proving more and more that you need a big three now. You need a big three to be able to go for a title. I think that's what most teams are trying to do. They're trying to build what their big three is going to be. Like that Philadelphia team, like you said, they currently have a big two, if you want to call it, with Embiid and Simmons. I'm not a big Simmons fan. The guy can't shoot the ball. He's an NBA player. Come on. Right. Like, get in the gym, start to work on your game, and then you can really be a force. Embiid, that guy can do everything. He is one of those big men that I'm sure everybody would want on their team. But yeah, you have to have a big three now. I'm hoping the Celtics team can start to gain a little bit more, obviously, gel of playing together now that they're going to be on the court for the first time together and start to just kind of mesh their play, because I think that's huge, obviously, in professional sports, but in team sports in general. And so having them all on the floor now and being able to play more minutes together, I think will be huge going forward. I think Brad Stevens will have this team in a great position. And I think here's the thing where we are better than the Nets at right now is we have a far better bench. Our bench is far better. Our depth is far better. So I think we're going to meet that team in the playoffs. That would be my prediction. And what are the Nets going to do to kind of fill their holes that they have in the meantime through this season? I know it's a little shorter than normal, but it's still a long season. So what are they going to do to kind of fill in along their big three? But, yeah, I think the NBA is exciting as always. I think it's still trying to get into a flow. I've said that earlier on this show and in the past that I think you still won't see the best of the NBA until the second half of the season. Let these guys kind of get into a flow and kind of mesh together. And I know a little side topic that I've kind of been seeing over the week is, what's more impressive is it Brady going to 10 Super Bowls or was it LeBron going to 10 NBA championships? And I only honestly have to say it's Brady going to 10 Super Bowls with the 11-man game of football. Football is a lot harder, obviously. And I'm not saying it's a lot harder of a sport. It's just a lot harder to reach that many championships. I think LeBron's had an easier way of getting there. And don't take my words twisted that I shouldn't say easy, but I think it's just an easier path to get to 10 championships in the NBA, especially when you can play with guys like Kyrie and a big three that you can have around you. Obviously, playing with Anthony Davis is nice as well. So I guess that's my thought on that.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you there. I think it's just so much more difficult in the NFL to have sustained success because free agency can kill you in the NFL. You see it all the time. We've seen it as Patriot fans all the time because guys that are really solid players, maybe not superstars, but solid players, after a team wins the Super Bowl, those guys get paid. You look at a guy like Trey Flowers, Jamie Collins, Kyle Van Noy, just for recency, those guys are really good players for the Patriots. They're not superstars, but they're really good players, and they got paid. When you win the Super Bowl, you get paid. And we see it with other teams, too. That's one thing we were talking about Mahomes before. The only thing that might hurt him other than injury could be that if he loses any of his top guys in Kelsey and Tyreek Hill to free agency, because those guys are going to get paid after winning a couple of Super Bowls. So I think you're right. I think it is harder to sustain success because in the NBA, you got, as we talk about, the big three. You got three guys. It's easy to interchange the role players after every couple of years with free agency if you can keep guys together. So I think you're right with that. The NBA being slightly easier to get to 10 championships rather than the NFL. So very interesting. Our ninth topic of the night is going to shift over to F1 racing, and Brandon brought up this topic during the week, and it's something we really want to talk about, and that's the Sainz and Leclerc partnership that's going to happen over at Ferrari. Sainz was with McLaren earlier, but now he's with Ferrari, and it's going to be sort of even though there's not a huge difference in age, it's going to be sort of a mentor-mentee thing going on with Ferrari that they hope will be very successful in F1, Brandon.
Yeah, I think it's an exciting pair. Obviously, I'm a huge F1 fan. I'm loving that we're talking about it on the show, and I'm looking forward to having more topics. If you're liking what we're talking about and you're liking this show, make sure you hit the like and make sure you hit the subscribe and make sure you give us a follow on our Twitter handles here at the bottom. But yeah, it's going to be an exciting team pairing with those two at Ferrari. I think in Maranello, Italy, they've been looking to get back to the top, and this is the teaming that they're looking to have it happen, the pairing that they're looking to make it happen with. I think people talk about Sainz coming in. He's got a little bit more experience in F1 than Leclerc, so they want him to come in and kind of mentor it. But I think it's going to be the flip. And honestly, Leclerc's been at Ferrari. He knows their protocols. He's been in the car a lot longer. I think he's really going to be the one that's going to be showing Sainz the way. He's the talented driver. He's the more talented driver. In F1, you have a driver 1 and a driver 2. Driver 2 is most definitely going to be Carlos Sainz this year. And it's kind of like one of those things when even in other professional sports, like the Kansas City Chiefs, they're going to lean more towards Patrick Mahomes because he is that young superstar. It's the same thing in this situation with the Ferrari team in F1 where they're going to lean on Charles Leclerc a little bit more because he is their young superstar that they're looking to push forward to challenge the likes of a Max Verstappen and a Lewis Hamilton. And Ferrari's been one of those teams where obviously it's really one of the most historical teams on the grid. They're used to having success, so they really want to get back to the front. And they're hoping that these two together can be the two that will do it. I'm really excited to see it going forward. We won't get to see the real 2021 cars until February when winter testing starts. But today we got to see Sainz in his first time in a Ferrari with Sainz and Leclerc getting to test out the 2018 car and getting to do a few laps around Ferrari's test track. I think that's going to go big to Carlos Sainz, getting himself a little bit more acquainted with the team, with the car. All these cars handle differently. They all have different pros and cons. So I think this is a huge bonus for him being able to get, even though it's only the 2018 car, these cars won't differ that much over the years, especially because the big rule change doesn't come into 2022. So this 2021 car is only going to be slightly different from that 2018 car. So I think today it was exciting to see Carlos Sainz in red and to see him in the car, but I was a little bit more excited to see Charles Leclerc in the car yesterday.
Yeah, this is going to be a very interesting thing to follow throughout F1. This is nothing new for Sainz because back when he was with McLaren, he had Norris that he was sort of tandeming with over there. And it's so funny to talk about, in individual sports, even though there's a team with your car and pit stops and sort of things like that. But even it's technically an individual sport in F1 racing. But then you have guys that are sort of on the same team because they drive the same car, they're with the same racing team and things like that. So it's sort of a mesh of an individual sport and a team sport, which is very interesting. So, but this is nothing new for Sainz this year with the Ferrari team, and I think you're right. I think Leclerc is going to be the one that's going to be the top racer there. They were both top 10 in points last year, so it's not like you're merging a guy who's sort of trying to figure things out with a guy who's been successful. They've both been very successful, so I think it'll probably help them both to have this partnership with Ferrari and with each other through the F1 season. This is going to be a lot of fun to watch. One thing I do like about this show, too, that we're doing right now is we're bringing out names of guys in F1 that people can follow throughout the F1 season. If you haven't checked out F1, the guys that we're talking about, we talked about Lewis Hamilton. I can't remember if it was last week or the week before. That guy's obviously the marquee name, but now you follow a couple of these guys and you sort of get familiar with the F1 racing drivers, and it's going to be a lot of fun to watch these guys over the next F1 season.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking to dive into F1, I suggest looking at Netflix and going to the series Drive to Survive on Netflix. There's 2 seasons on there, and the 3rd season should be coming out. And obviously, it's a little behind because obviously they got to record it. So the season that's coming out next for this 3rd season will cover the 2019 season, and seasons 1 and 2 cover the 2018 and I believe the 2017 season. But if you're just new to F1, that would be a great way to dive in, familiarize yourself with some of the drivers. Some of the drivers have changed year to year, but a lot of them are still there, especially the main players like a Lewis Hamilton, a Valtteri Bottas, Sebastian Vettel. And he's moving to a new team with Aston Martin, so that's going to be exciting this year. But yeah, I mean, with new guys and new teams and such an exciting sport, I'm really looking forward to the start of the season. And I've just been watching a lot of the videos on F1 on YouTube recently, just kind of getting myself excited again and amped up for the new season, which is going to be coming. I'm looking forward to the winter testing in February. But yeah, I mean, this is, like I said, an international sport with international stars, and I really suggest you guys taking a look at it. Another international sport, another international star, one of the biggest stars on the planet, Ronaldo, the great Ronaldo. I mean, just one of the sexiest men alive and one of the greatest soccer players ever to play, right? I mean, this guy is, if you're a guy, you got to be a little bit jealous of this guy, right? I mean, this guy is amazing, to be honest. I think he surpassed Beckham in his status of being like that good-looking soccer player. And I mean, honestly, he's broken so many records, and he broke another one recently with the domestic goals, and that's what we're going to talk about right now.
Yeah, absolutely. You talk about, we look at athletes in different sports, and Michael Jordan, I think, was really the first athlete that really transcended the globe. It helped that he was he was the best player on the Dream Team. Nike, Gatorade, they all marketed him so well that he was huge across the globe. He got so much attention because of that. And then since then, we've had other athletes who have gotten to that point. Tiger Woods, I think Tom Brady's in that discussion as well. And now Cristiano Ronaldo, I think, is in that discussion too. He's an international celebrity on top of being an unbelievable athlete. And I think that's, just shows you what kind of status he has amongst athletes across the globe. But yeah, he just passed Pele for the most career domestic goals in the history of football overseas. And I just think that's unbelievable. I didn't realize he was 35. I thought he was slightly younger than that. But he's also been around for so long, you forget that, how long he's been, be an unbelievable soccer player for this long. So it's unbelievable that he just passed Pele. He's going to play for several years after this. So it's not like this is, a record that he can't achieve. He's going to be in first place, I think, by the end of his career. So I don't think that's too far out of reach for him. But just an unbelievable achievement. We were talking before how the guy in first place, we barely know him. I think he played back in the 20s, so we don't even know who this guy really is. So the fact that he passed Pele, who's just, I think, soccer's first real legend, is Pele. Everybody knows who that guy is. Whenever you use one name for somebody, you know how popular they are. We talked before about Kobe and about Shaq and Brady and Michael and Tiger. Whenever you use one name for somebody, you know they're famous. But just an unbelievable career achievement for Cristiano Ronaldo. And like you said, women love him and men want to be him, and we can see why with his career success on the soccer field.
I think the reason you're forgetting why he's 35 is those stunning good looks. The guy's like a fine wine. He's just aging well. He's just getting better as he ages, honestly. And I think it's one of those things where 758 domestic goals, and that's what put him past Pele second all time. And I think you hit it right there on the head where the number one player played in 1920s. He's got 759. So expect that record to get broken probably within the next couple of weeks here over the next couple of domestic matches that Ronaldo gets to play in Series A, Italian Series A for Juventus. So I'm expecting him to, break that record, and I'm sure we're going to have to talk about it once he does get to number one. But it's going to happen here, over the next couple of weeks. And I think it was one of those things where the guy who's number one, I was saying, if you're unknown, it's like, sure, we don't play professional sports to get notoriety or sports in general for notoriety. But, we know Pele, and he was number two. This number one guy was just so unknown, and that I just think, once he kind of dissolves into number two, as far as I'm concerned, Ronaldo's number one right now. Because once you pass Pele was arguably the greatest player of all time. I think most people would put him up there on his list, right? So once you're passing Pele, that puts yourself into elite company. Another guy that's not far behind is Lionel Messi. He's got 715 goals. He's actually 33 years old, so he's 2 years younger than Ronaldo. People are talking about that he'll give that record a run as well. This year, though, Ronaldo's getting the better of him so far. Ronaldo scored 18 goals, and Messi's only scored 10. Like I said, I think Ronaldo's just getting better with age. And I think we talked about McGregor and how he built his brand. This is another guy that's just built a mega brand off of his good looks, kind of like David Beckham did. But then he goes on the field and he also delivers to be one of the best players of all time, if not the best of all time. And like I said, I think that's a question that you have to come up with, whether it's Cristiano Ronaldo, whether it's Pele, whether it's Messi, whether it's Diego Maradona, or I even think of some of the other Brazilian guys like the great Ronaldinho, or even the Brazilian Ronaldo, who Cristiano Ronaldo is so good that he makes you forget about the Brazilian Ronaldo, who was so amazing in his own right.
Unreal.
So I just think that it just proves how great Cristiano is, and 758 goals is just mind-blowing.
Unbelievable. And it's, you talk about a star and marketing himself well. Whenever you see any kind of promo for soccer, whether it's World Cup or over in the Premier League or anything like that, it always just seems like you see Cristiano Ronaldo right there. He's just the face of soccer internationally, not just in individual leagues at all. So he's definitely a guy that people are going to remember for years to come. That's our last topic for tonight. We should have mentioned this before, though. We got a great email leading up to this show. So our producer, Ben Kudo, who's doing a fabulous job as always, is going to chime in, and he's going to let us know what this email is. Email or live chat on the YouTube site. Ask us questions. Be sure to do so. Ben Kudo, what's going on, buddy? How are you?
Hey, guys. How are you doing tonight? You got me loud and clear?
We can hear you, my friend.
Yes,
Thanks
sir.
for all the work you do behind the scenes. I'm glad people are seeing who you are.
Yeah. It's good to be here. Good show tonight, guys. So we got a message here from KDP. It says, hi, Coach Perry. I'm from Daleville, Indiana, about halfway between Muncie and Indianapolis. I own a small bed and breakfast, and this tournament coming to town is a lifeline. I was YouTubing NCAA men's basketball bubble in the Hoosier State and loved your kind words. Feeling blessed. putting $100 on a team against my neighbor. Who is a sure bet? Love from Indiana, KDP. So what do you guys got? First, how about a shout out to Katie, and then who do you have for her to put $100 on?
Well, I'll take that. Well, Katie, I really appreciate the message and the email. And I guess Katie's a betting lady, which is awesome. I love hearing that as well. And especially if she's betting against her neighbor, that makes the tournament that much more exciting. I think a team that I would, if I had to bet my hundo and my fun ticket on anybody, I'd have to bet that on the Michigan Wolverines right now. The Michigan Wolverines right now, they've looked really good in this young season. A team, I believe they're 12-2 right now. They're their number 2 ranked team in the country. Juwan Howard from the Big Five obviously has his team playing really well. And that would be my pick. If I was going to bet some money right now, I'd bet for Michigan to come back to tournament glory.
Yeah, that's a good pick, Brandon. I mean, Juwan Howard's got those guys playing well. I think they're dealing with COVID right now at Michigan. I'm not sure how many games they're going to either lose or possibly just kick down the road a little bit. But they've been playing really well. Two teams that I would say right now, because the Blue Bloods are actually not playing that great to start this season. Kentucky is not having a good year. Duke is not having a good year. You saw Coach K get a little upset at a student reporter down at Duke as far as how Coach K gets upset. But the two teams that I would look at who have been there before in the Final Four, one is Gonzaga. Mark Few, great coach there. He's been there a long time now. Still hasn't won a national championship. Has been to a national championship back in 2017, lost to UNC, but has not won a national championship. Jalen Suggs, their point guard, is awesome. So that's one team to look for. And then Villanova, again in the top 5. They're a top team as well. Gonzaga's one. I believe Villanova's ranked 3. They have so much, NCAA championship experience. Jay Wright has done a great job there. He's already won 2 national titles, 2016, 2018, and I wouldn't be shocked if Villanova was one of those teams who was the favorite this year. So those would be my 2 picks if I was looking for a winner. You're right. You're right. I'm going to pick Villanova. You're absolutely right. I'm taking Villanova. Enough said. The way they play defense, you got to take Villanova.
So we have one more email. This one's from Eric, and this one's coming from Houston. I had to edit this down a little bit because there were some expletives, but it said, I heard you guys ranting about Houston Texans and Deshaun Watson. I have been a season ticket holder a long time, and you both sound like buffoons saying Deshaun Watson is out. Ever heard of a thing called negotiating leverage? ? It says most of these athletes are spoiled brats and should respect the owners. If he was going to get an offer, say bye-bye after his temper tantrum. Hopefully you guys know more about Boston sports than you do about Houston. You were just jealous you have no QB in New England. The rest of the country loves to see New England tears. Okay, so
Wow.
what do you guys got on this? Eric, the season ticket holder, says Deshaun should listen to the owners.
Eric, thanks very much for the email, man. We really appreciate it. Sorry, Brandon, don't mean to cut you off. But, okay, so I appreciate the question. I was trying to see if that said Cal McNair instead of Eric. But what negotiating power? Watson already has a massive contract. The money is not the issue. Watson has not been included in any of the head coaching interviews or any of the GM interviews. And it's not that he wants to sit there in the interview and say, hi, how you? What's your scheme? And all. He just wants a little bit of a say. He wants to be part of the process. He doesn't want to be the final decision maker, because that's up to the owner and the GM. He doesn't want to be the guy making the call, but he wants a little bit of just being involved with this organization, because they just traded his best player last year with DeAndre Hopkins. There's rumors that J.J. Watt's going to get released or get cut. So he's seeing all these star players leave. So he's saying, okay, you guys are going to get rid of these star players. And some of it might be because Watson's now making the big money. But what's the plan? he wants to be involved in the process. It has nothing to do with the fact that, he wants more money. He's already got one of the best contracts in the NFL. So I don't understand that part of it. I get it. Respect the owners. That's an old school way of looking at it. I respect the owners. We have a great owner in Bob Kraft with the New England Patriots. I have a lot of respect for him. He just opened up a vaccination site at Gillette Stadium, which is awesome. One of the best things he's ever done. And I respect the owners too, but Cal McNair has not involved Deshaun Watson in the process after telling him he was going to involve Deshaun Watson in the process. So I think that's the part that stings the most for Watson.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think it's a couple of things. I wouldn't be surprised if in the years coming, if Cal McNair keeps it up, he's going to end up like the Los Angeles Clippers owner, get himself moved out, and somebody's just going to come in and want to buy his team, and everybody's going to say, move this guy out, because that's what's going to happen. And I know people are like, oh, owns the team, he's a billionaire. Same thing that the Clippers owner was saying, right? He's gone now. So if Cal McNair keeps it up, that's where he's going to be. But I would say, to answer Eric, I would say I would take Katie's $100 and bet it that Deshaun Watson's leaving town, buddy. Because that's going to be a surefire bet that Deshaun Watson wants out of town. It's just going to be what team is going to trade for him at this point, and when is the trade going to happen, and when are we going to talk about it on this show? Because it's inevitable at this point. It's definitely going to happen. And then another thing is, hey, I mean, New England tears. At least before our quarterback left, he gave us 6 titles. So I'll take those 6 titles any day of the week. I think Houston's working on 0. So let's improve that a little bit, Eric, before you say New England tears, because this is title town. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what else to say to that, honestly.
I will admit, yes, I am just jealous that he gets to watch Deshaun Watson. I'll admit that every day of the week. I love Deshaun Watson. I wish he was a Patriot, even though I don't think that's going to happen this offseason. I think he'll go somewhere else. But I am absolutely jealous of Deshaun Watson. So that's the one thing you got right, Eric, in that email.
Well, I don't think you guys should take it too personally, because he did have a couple of points that he wrote about a 6-paragraph email. So this is kind of the part I thought we should discuss. The other was praising, but yeah.
Subscribe, hit that like button.
All right. Yeah. Great show, guys. Again, I'm gonna let you sign it off, but good night from the lab.
Ben, thanks very much, folks. That's Ben Kudo, our producer. Does a phenomenal job setting everything up, does everything. He's the one who reads these emails. He's the one that gets the show together. So Ben does a great job. Glad he could get some screen time. Brandon, thank you so much for once again providing all the insight. Your coaching perspective, I think, is unbelievable, and I think that's a very valuable thing to this show too. So good to see you again, Brandon, and good to see you folks. Thanks again for tuning in to Comeback Sports. Once again, our Twitter handle. You're probably watching this on YouTube right now. Make sure you subscribe to our channel. Make sure you view all our different videos. They'll all be cut up later on as well for the different segments that we've been talking about. Folks, we'll see you next time here on Comeback Sports. Enjoy the weekend off from NFL football. We get the Super Bowl in a week and a half, though. See you next time, folks.